After a few months of mostly quiet in the gaming world due to understandable reasons, it seems like things are finally ramping up again. Guess we're getting close enough to release dates for Nintendo's development teams to feel confident in talking about stuff again. Which also means it's probably only a matter of time until we get more long-awaited Smash news. We just don't know when. More importantly, we also have no idea who it'll be, thanks to Nintendo keeping quiet about it so far. But maybe we can still figure out who it might be? Let's do a quick rundown of the 3 characters I think are most likely to be DLC Fighter number 7 and why. This will be pure analysis in interpreting the current situation, since as of the time of this video's development, there are no major Smash leaks or rumors making the rounds. So, let's see if we can call it. The first of these 3 is someone who is no stranger to Smash speculation. You know, I bet from an outsider's perspective, all this talk over Geno must seem pretty weird, but right now his odds feel like the best they've ever been. While not every DLC pick needs to be a showstopper of a reveal, and I of all people stand by that, Fighter number 7 was probably planned to be revealed at E3 before this entire year went off the rails, and Ultimate has generally arranged its reveals so that E3 has something that catches attention. Ridley in 2018, Banjo and Dragon Quest as a whole last year, etc. Ultimate's gone out of its way to fulfill several long-running fan requests, and at this point, Geno is one of the few left who've yet to get an invite. Fighters Pass 2 is the perfect spot to finally make that happen, and if he was chosen, I gotta think the number 7 spot would be the best time to reveal him. Or would have been, but, you know, extenuating circumstances. And his Mii costume from Smash 4's DLC is still MIA, which is rather suspicious. So the thing is, despite Geno's game of origin being nearly 25 years old at this point, Super Mario RPG carries a legacy that endures to this day. While nostalgia can be fickle and inconsistent and shouldn't be the only reason a character is chosen, there are a lot of people who grew attached to this character from playing his game as kids or catching up when they were older to see what all the fuss was about. These kinds of long-term fans would absolutely buy in for a chance to play as him again. And Super Mario RPG does embody a legacy of Mario role-playing spin-offs and Nintendo's willingness to collab with other companies for big projects. And since Sakurai is actively looking for characters who can do new and interesting stuff, Geno happens to have a very unique skill set through combining the magic abilities of a star with the make-believe weaponry of the child's toy he inhabits. He could even have a unique timing-based mechanic based on the timed hits and action commands that Mario's RPG spin-offs are famous for. If you want to see how, I actually did a video a while back covering what he could be like. Geno's Challenger Pack could also bring in more content from Super Mario RPG and show just why it's become such a classic. A stage based on somewhere like the Forest Maze where Geno first joins the party, or the interdimensional factory that serves as the game's final dungeon, would offer new places to fight, especially if they play off the game's signature art style, which could also help any spirits that accompany Geno stand out, as they'd likely be sprites or endearingly primitive mid-90s 3D models of major characters and bad guys from the game. Maybe even alternate versions of Mario, Peach, and Bowser. The Geno and Mallow spirits that already exist would be moved into here just like the ARMS ones were added to Min Min's spirit board. This could also be a chance to make Mii costumes based on other Mario RPG characters, or maybe some major characters or recurring class designs from Square Enix's games. And then there's music, which could be iffy if whatever restricted Clouds and Heroes music selections also kicked in here. Hopefully not. Super Mario RPG's composer is already actively involved in Ultimate's soundtrack, so maybe that would help. Next, we have a different character from a different company who nonetheless has a notable chance right now. You know, isn't it weird how we've gone this far into Ultimate and still somehow don't have a newcomer from Bandai Namco? Not saying we quote need a rep from them, because newcomer choices don't actually work that way, but it's still surprising with how many major characters they have on offer that none beyond Pac-Man have snuck in. Well, I think Season 2 might be where that changes. While he hasn't been as requested as Geno, Lloyd boasts an enduring support base of his own, enough that being slotted for the reveal that would have been at E3 is pretty plausible if he is actually happening. His home game, Tales of Symphonia, was a gateway into RPGs for a lot of GameCube kids, just like Super Mario RPG was for the SNES several years prior. So while other characters from the Tales series may outclass him in popularity, and I wouldn't rule out someone like Yuri now that his game got a Switch port, I do think Lloyd is the more likely choice if a Tales character happens. And his Mii costume is also still suspiciously absent, for what that's worth, even after fellow Bamco character Heihachi saw his return in Min Min's update. Despite the stigma surrounding anime swordsmen, Lloyd wouldn't have any trouble at all standing out from the crowd. because he fights with two swords. A dual-wielding fighting style is something we haven't seen in Smash yet, aside from a few attacks used by the pits, meaning there's a niche open for the taking here. Lloyd also has a lot to work with for a moveset, as he can pull from the long list of different attack animations and combat arts he learns as he levels up in his game. His moveset could even work in elements of his series' combat mechanics, with intricate combos, multiple tiers of specials, and even cancels reminiscent of fighting games. In a way, he could be like a cross between a typical sword fighter and a Shoto. That'd be different. And if you're more into the crossover angle, Lloyd getting into Smash would also introduce another long-running RPG franchise to the mix, which could be a focal point of his Challenger Pack. I could see Lloyd's Spirit Board going in one of two directions, featuring spirits of his fellow party members in Tales of Symphonia, or mixing in other characters from across the series. Whichever direction they went in, I could see a Mii costume or two pulling from one or the other as well. A stage based on a notable location like the Tower of Salvation would complete the set, along with music from across the series' history. I may not be as familiar with this franchise as I am others, but even I'm aware of some of its iconic themes. But there's more in play here than just third parties. Contrary to popular belief, Nintendo's got plenty of their own characters to offer still, and someone in particular might be in just the right position to show up next. If you remember, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 originally got a look when Ultimate's base roster was getting hammered out, but it still had so far to go development-wise at that time that pulling a character from it wasn't really doable. Which is how that infamous Mii costume happened, as a consolation prize, and the other Mii costume in the base game. But you know what other game that same thing also happened to? We've already seen the DLC team double back to ARMS to get Min Min, and while we haven't seen someone make the jump from Mii costume to playable within Ultimate's DLC yet, I don't think it's that much of a stretch when a Spirit has already done it. And despite how much time has passed since Xenoblade 2's release, Rex and Pyra still have a significant amount of support, enough that they'd actually fit an E3 caliber reveal. Of course, they'd come with the upside of bringing more Xenoblade content into Smash. The series just keeps growing after 10 years and counting, so having even more of it present here would be a welcome surprise. And just like Lloyd, Rex wouldn't have any trouble at all feeling distinct from all the other sword fighters out there, thanks to his own combat arts, battle mechanics, blade specials where Pyra performs her own attacks, the list goes on. How about using the grappling hook on his salvager gear to command grab opponents and trip them up? Or maybe it could be his regular grab. There are even two distinct ways the moveset could interpret Xenoblade 2's combat. One based on the affinity mechanic, where Pyra would physically follow Rex around and buff his stats the longer they stick close together, or another where Rex could swap between multiple blades for different effects on his attacks, though the latter would require multiple movesets to be programmed and might be asking too much of the smaller DLC team. I actually designed a moveset built around the first idea, so check it out if you're interested. But regardless of the direction the moveset took, Rex and Pyra's Challenger Pack could bring in all kinds of content from their game beyond what little Ultimate currently has. Xenoblade 2's many memorable locations make it really hard to narrow down a good stage. Oriah, Morar Dane, the Goldmouth flagship, and that's just scratching the surface. To say no less of all the blades and drivers that could come in as spirits, including some from the Torna DLC. Could even see a character or two find a way in as Mii costumes as well. Because let's be honest, you know you'd buy a sword fighter costume of Zeke, admit it. And how about the music? We have 3 themes from the game in Ultimate already, but this could be a chance to bring in even more, including one I really want to put here but can't because it involves major story spoilers. Alas. And there you have it. The 3 characters I think are most likely to be the next one revealed. All 3 are standouts, unique in their own ways, and all from RPGs. Funny how that worked out. But they're far from the only options. Here are a few honorable mentions. If Geno isn't in the cards, I could also see Sora getting chosen. He's plausible enough, I just don't think he's the frontrunner from Square Enix right now. And I'd be surprised if we got more than one newcomer from the same third-party company in the same wave of DLC. Steve from Minecraft also isn't out of the question. Despite the hate base, his game is undeniably iconic, and credit where credit is due, he's actually got a ton of potential for an interesting moveset. On the first party end, Bandana D is another Nintendo character who fits the heavily requested by fans angle. Seriously, people are overlooking just how much support this guy has, and his Spear Fighter playstyle could be really interesting. And we can't forget Pokemon, especially with its 8th generation being out now. I'd be surprised if we didn't get a newcomer from Sword and Shield before we're done. And while I think it's more likely to happen a little later in this season, showing up at number 7 isn't out of the question. There are also a few characters I think aren't as likely as they might seem. With the shiny new Monster Hunter game announced last week, there'll be an uptick in people expecting a playable hunter to show up to advertise the game. The thing is, I don't see it happening yet. Sakurai seems to avoid pulling newcomers from games unless they're finished or nearly finished. Yes, including Fire Emblem Fates, which was out in Japan 7 months before Corrin got in. If a playable Monster Hunter really is in the cards, I think it'll be later in the pass, so content from the new game can be worked in more easily. I also think we'll be waiting a while longer for a Zelda Newcomer for the same reasons. While the upcoming Breath of the Wild sequel is definitely worth keeping an eye on, and Age of Calamity is an awesome surprise, I don't think a character from either one will show up in Smash until they're out. Take a rain check on this one. And be careful with characters that are getting talked about a lot, alright? Smash Speculation has this way of bandwagoning on like 10 of them and then declaring them frontrunners just because they're getting talked about so much. Not saying they can't happen, several are just in grayer situations and the loudest voices can make it seem. Better to look beyond the surface, okay? And that's my relatively quick take on where we currently stand. It's pretty different from most predictions, but hey, I end up going against the grain more often than not, for better or worse. Still hard to say when the next reveal will happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. But when it does, I'll take what we learn into account and maybe do another one of these. We'll see. Special thanks to these people for helping make this video happen. Thanks especially to my patrons for supporting me in times like these. And until next time, man, can they at least give us a general idea of when we'll learn more? The suspense from all this radio silence is getting to me.